Hey everyone, it is Sunday, January 27th, 2019, and this is Brooklyn Baritone Podcast. Okay, thank you for hearing us out again. I'm flying solo today because my beautiful counterpart is not able to be with us today, but I'm going to get us through it. Please don't fall asleep on me. The issue that I'm definitely going to talk about today is something that's hard impacting everyone, is what is wrong with men? Now, when I came up with that title, what is wrong with men? It's not an attempt to bash men at all. Is basically looking at the issues of the absence of the presence of a proper male role model or men knowing what they're supposed to do. Now, the male role in the family is key to a proper foundation. Regardless of what we feel, we know is going on today, regardless of how you've been raised, it's important and imperative that men are in the role of the family, because the family is the key structure to a proper community, which in turn relates to a proper neighborhood, city, state, nation, world. You get the picture. Of course, you can't have a proper family if the individual is off with certain things or don't know how to manage their weaknesses. And I'm going to highlight these things today as I'm talking to you. Now, the problem with how we move today, we think it's just quite all right just to move forward without a man in the home or a man functioning the way that they should be. Because a man could be at home, but he's not performing his role properly. He could be absentee, not physically there, but he could be at home. His check is coming home, but he's just not engaging with his wife or his children the way he needs to. He's off doing his own thing. Or we also have the absenteeism where the father is just not there. What we call the label deadbeat dads. And unfortunately, that's like a coined phrase that's thrown around too often. And a lot of men who do step up and do what they're supposed to do are coined that phrase because automatically, if they looked at it in a negative light, then, you're just like every other man out there, unfortunately. Now, the thing is, when a man isn't performing his role properly, in a proper capacity, it creates a void, like a black hole. We know what the idea of a black hole is. It's something that just sucks in because the absence of something is there. So something has to rush in, get sucked in, everything, planets and stars and dust get sucked in to fill that void. So it's kind of chaotic. And even though we may be used to these kind of lifestyles, this kind of culture, a lot of us have been raised in households like that, unfortunately. We think it's the norm. It may become the norm because we have the capacity to adapt and still move forward and still make good things happen. But the fact remains that if the man is not there, it creates a void of the presence in the home, in the life of their wives, of their children. There is some damaging effect. You can still grow up and make great things happen in your life. I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but think of probably how much greater things could have been. Now, some people say, well, I wouldn't have started my own company if it wasn't because, I saw my mother struggle on her own and I want to make sure that, she never struggled again. And that made me think about going to college. And then I pursued this career and then I opened my business. Sure, it happens like that, but not every day. And also, again, things could have still turned out better or even in the same way or even better than that if the man was there in the capacity he's supposed to be in. So the void is created. And when the void is created, things rush in to fill that void. Okay. And one of the things that were rushed in, one of the usual cases you hear of are abused children and spouses. And that causes, damaged homes because the man's not there in his capacity. So abused spouses are physically abused, verbally abused, even sexually abused. or even just being neglected. And that causes a damaged home. It causes friction. It causes stress. It causes trauma. That is one of the things that's one of the actual byproducts of a man not being there in the capacity that he needs to be in. And, as a result of that, we have things that fill in the void, like women's liberation. Now, that's done a good amount to help a lot of women who did legit need it. But also what that did was set the tone and the standard now to say that we don't need men. It set the tone and the standard now culturally to accept that men aren't worth the effort or the issue. We're actually going to move on and make things better without men. And the unfortunate part is, it's like people have the mentality that every man is like that. Not every person thinks like that. Not every woman thinks like that. But that is the ennui, the uncomfortable environment and situation that we're in, because we're so used to hearing the phrase "deadbeat dad." That's the word, that's the phrase that's always been kicked around and said so much. It's kind of like, we're indoctrinated a bit with it. Whether we take it seriously or not, it's indoctrination. So now the women's lib movement is like basically women substituting women or other factors to replace men. Now, there's some things that we can easily substitute in life to get to where we need to be, but there's some things that we just simply cannot substitute. We can't substitute the presence of men performing properly for themselves, for their mates, for their children, for their household. Now, women's lib, I know it's fueled by an agenda, because mainly in minority communities, and I believe in the 60s, women were given incentive to not have men in the household. Where if you had a man living with you, then, you can't get government subsidies. Can't get welfare, can't get food stamps back then, EBT now. You can't get other benefits as well. Now, given the fact that, a lot of people probably working and just making it, getting by, or poor, or in poverty, a woman could say, well, I could get money because his job's not coming through properly, or he's not working at all, or yeah, he's making X amount of dollars, but I could get the same, maybe plus more, if he's not here in the picture. Seems like a good deal, and a lot of people went for it. Because, a lot of men weren't there in the homes. A lot of men probably weren't making enough money right there. Or they were probably making about, breaking even. So, incentives were given. Incentives were given for men to be removed from the household. Incentives were given for women to feel that, I could do me without having to worry about him. So as opposed to, we're going to stick it out. And a lot of families have stuck it out. A lot of people grew up in the proper household with the proper male figure, mother figure, and everything. But then a lot of people were broken. But a lot of men were also broken too. Now I'm going to get into fixing that in a second. So we have the women's lib movement. We have a lot of, spotlights on the broken homes, the abused children, the abused wives. Of course, it's going to bear a weight on society. And then society and cultural demands are going to grow and grow that this needs to be fixed. Then that burden is going to lie on the government. The government now has stepped in, along with the, women's lib movement. You can see it's moving in a certain direction. So when you fast forward to the government now dictating the parent structure, we now currently have this monster of a system of divorce court and family court, where custody over children is usually determined by judges who don't know these families. So we have, of course, the case of men who aren't stepping up, but then we also have the women now who have been incentivized, is that the word? Who have incentive to not have the men there in their lives with them. So easily, if I just get tired of him, whether I'm married to him or not, we happen to have children. If I get tired of him, I have the government backing me to give me money. Matter of fact, to take money from you now. All right? So you don't even have to be here, buddy. You can be push it aside. I get money from you and also money from the government. So, you're making out. And we utilize, women have been, weaponized children, weaponize their feelings to keep fueling this system. Yes, many men have done wrong, have abused women, abused children, molested, beat up, ran out, cheated. All these things happening is still happening. But there's no possible way that a system that's really made to punish the men who are lacking, there's no way that system is going to be successful for everybody when all men, just about all men, fall under that umbrella, where every man now is subject to have their wages garnished now for child support, to have custody of their children taken away from them or diminished greatly. Now, we know there's a lot of men out there who are deadbeats, but there are a lot of men, probably even more men, that take care of their business, that are involved or wish heavily to be involved in their children's lives, their wives' lives, or the mother of the child's life. So the problem is we have standards that are skewed. We have standards where we feel like we can do what we want to do. And that's part of the issue with how men grow up and how women grow up as well, where we're seeing the negative effects of men doing what they want to do. And the effect is very great. The impact is great because men now, like I said before, have a key function. So if you have someone that has a key function not performing properly, it's going to affect and impact everything and everybody. So we fast forward into a forced matriarchal culture that promotes emasculation to a degree. So we still have plenty of men who are doing the right things, plenty of women who either just the men aren't doing things properly, or they're like, no, I'm going to have this man in my life properly. We're going to build this life properly and raise our children properly, regardless of what courts say or what society says or what feminists say. We're going to do this properly. So we go forward into men being emasculated. It's easier for, as you can see, we shouldn't be putting hands on each other, but for a woman to hit a man is like, there's no real outrage. You can see it all the time on social media or hear it in the news. No one really has an outburst, and all a man has to do is just swell up, not even put his hands on someone, and everyone is jumping all over the guy. And that is an unfortunate byproduct of this culture, this cultural knee-jerk reaction, for women's lib, for child custody, for, men paying alimony, all this stuff. I could probably understand the intended good, but it definitely is not good. And if you want further information, you can listen to or look at this documentary I looked at called Divorce Corp. And boy, did this thing open my eyes even more so. Things that most of us kind of know already, but it dots the T's it crosses the T's and dots the I's with exactly what we feel and understand what's going on. It's not about the welfare of the children. It is not about the upliftment of women. It's not about correcting the men properly. It's about money. It's like Wu-Tang said it best. Cash rules everything around me. Cream get the money. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. That's what this thing is about. It's about money. It's not about putting families together. It's actually about keeping families separated so the courts can generate as much money, as much justification to keep doing what it's doing right now, to keep families apart. Because now you have these people who are appointed to kind of keep the game going. Because if families are together, that means that, there's no need for family court or divorce court or anything like that. So it's going to be beneficial. It's going to be lucrative. to keep the beef cooking between men and women and children, and then play into that. And they play into that. But Divorce Corp, C-O-R-P, is the name of the documentary. You could probably hopefully find it somewhere online or buy it. I forgot how I came across it, but I did see it. So, we have this forced emasculation here based on the courts legally to make money, part of an agenda to keep the family disabled, to keep the family handicapped. Because if you have strong-willed people with proper standards, there's a lot of, agendas that will not be able to fly in this world right now. And that's the honest truth. Because there's so much more that just goes past what the man's role is, and targeting men to keep men out the picture, keep men strong so that you can have strong families, strong wives, strong children, to have strong people with standards. We are weakened greatly. Because when we go back to the Garden of Eden, Lucifer, he knew to not come directly after Adam. More than likely, Adam wasn't going to take that. He wasn't hearing that. So he went after Eve. He went after Eve. Try to use verbal athleticism on her and got her to compromise herself. But through her, Adam got compromised. So it's not about just taking Eve down and then Eve just destroyed everything. It's really when Adam got compromised is when everything went down south. Not south, Alabama and Georgia, but you know what I'm saying. Things went south because now the man, because he's the key. He's the one who's supposed to be the foundation to provide direction and protection. But now he's been compromised now, and it's all messed up. That same concept is still going on today. Because many young men, I was one too, still young, are compromised. You could grow up in a decent home, but the thing is when a parent is doing their best to raise their child, society is a terrible, unrelenting competitor when it comes to raising your child. No matter how good your parenting tactics and skills and communication are, you will always have to combat against society. And society is pretty much anything goes at this point. And it's progressively getting more and more and more like that. So you could be telling your child one thing, moving one way inside the home, but then when they get out there, it's up to their free will. And you don't know how strong your child's will is going to be until they get tested again and again and again. When you send them out there in the world to school. So when young men, we're going to see the sexualization of women. We're going to see it on the billboards. We're going to hear it on the radios. We're going to hear it in the music. Definitely the music. We're going to see it on the television. We're going to see it on social media, on the cell phones, on the tablets. We're going to hear the talk about other people, how they, from their peers. Because usually they may act good to get by at home, but then when they get outside, they want to be free. They want to act grown, because when they go outside in the world where it's grown, where we drinking, we having sex, we having relationships, we doing all this fantastic quote unquote grown stuff. This, of course, is tantalizing and inviting to the young mind. So when a young mind now starts to adhere to it, when you start to get used to it, it's a consistent exposure to it. The parent is up against some stiff competition. Some kids, they're loyal and they get it. They may slip up, they may not slip up, and they end up, not going down that route. And a lot of other children start having sex, start having boyfriends, girlfriends. When I was younger, I was blessed to have a beautiful education to start off my life, thankfully, for my mother and my father. But I also didn't have the proper keys to grow myself as a character, as far as knowing what I really wanted to do, What was my gift and my ability? It was about going to school and getting education to go get a career or job, but I didn't know who I was. So you have to know who you are, because the more you know who you are, the quicker you know who you are, the better your standards and your vision and your goal is going to be, where you're going to have things laid out now of what exactly you want to do, as opposed to want to go out and kick it to girls. How much girls can you kick it to? You don't get no numbers. You don't get no burn. You don't got no game. You don't get no draws. So with that right there, when you're dealing with society standards now, this dude ain't getting no panties. This dude's a scrub. This dude's a dub over here. What's wrong with him? This is what we have to compete against. So it's down to free will. Yes, it is. But when you have a strong influence, you have your children's friends, you have maybe other family members, you have entertainment. There are billions, trillions, quadrillions amount of dollars spent on entertainment. And the word entertainment basically means to draw you in and to hold you there. People are spending so much money on grabbing your attention. A young mind doesn't stand a chance. Now, yes, it's down to free will, because you could teach a child something and they could still go their own way and go astray. Or you still stand your ground and try your best, and that child could still take it in and go a more proper route. But if adults have allowed entertainment to get to the point where it is now, when I came up, the only cursing you really heard was on HBO, on cable, because regularly, cable, when they started having more and more channels, they didn't really have curses. Same thing how they had on TV. They had movies, but of course it was little by little by little by little, where you wouldn't see any lovemaking. See, now people is butt naked and getting it in. You see all the stroking. You see everything, the panting and the grabbing, all that. You see it now on television, in music videos. We didn't see that coming up. We had our influences, but those little influences, the music we listened to when I was younger, those are bad influences too. And those were gateways to where we're at now. It's what society allows. So the young mind has to deal with that. My parents are saying one thing, but society is going this way. Oh, you guys are too restrictive. So a young man now, when they see the naked women, when they hear their rappers singing about getting draws, treating women like trash, not sticking around to be a husband, not properly growing yourself to be an entrepreneur, not growing yourself to go pursue this career in marine biology, to be a CFO. Let me go pursue business administration. No. Entertainment is not showing us that. Our colleagues out there, our peers out there are not showing us that, unless you happen to come across the right group of people who know themselves, that have their gifts and abilities highlighted for them, so they have their goals. You're going to have people who are like that, and a lot of people who are not. It's going to fall by the wayside. Now, when a young man is coming across that now you see where I'm getting at. A young man who does not have that proper guidance is going to turn into an older man who is allowed to live a certain way because society allows it. And then when the men are broken, because we broke them, we want to blame the man as the only person that's involved with this whole thing. So when we look at the problem as the man, we kind of see what the problem is, but we're seeing the very top layer. Actually, when you blame the man, we are looking at the surface level. Yes, when it comes down to it, as I keep saying, it's about free will. So a lot of people do have to be punished. They do have to be held accountable. Everyone needs to be held accountable. But what was the influence before that? How did that young man get there? Was he molested when he was younger? Was the father a proper role model? Was the mother compromising the father's role or his role any way possible. How did he grow up? What music did he listen to? You don't understand what entertainment they spend, like I said, quadrillions of dollars across the board to get your attention and to influence you into a certain mindset, a lifestyle, to buy things. This is not a joke. This is programming. This is programming. You have to get it past. It's not, y'all men out here ain't ish. These women out here, they bugging. This is the byproduct of us allowing many things to happen in society. Okay? Because our cultural responses, it's not working. It's making things worse. A lot of men don't trust women now because the legal system got them acting like a bunch of vampires. A lot of women out there are not trusting guys because they doing what they want to do. But how are they being raised? You don't just wake up one day and decide you're going to start bugging out. You're going to start abusing people. This is ingrained in us. You know, this is basically a war that's happening, a war that many of us are losing because we don't even know who the enemy is. We point fingers at the men, at the women, at the millennials. They're the enemy. This is a byproduct of what we allowed to happen. Okay? Someone has hijacked the plane. And we're in the back. We're not looking in the pilot's cockpit. We look at each other, fighting with each other. There's three things of dealing with the problem. The first thing is identifying and accepting that there is a problem. Many people can't even get past that because so when people don't feel there is a problem because they're either benefiting from it, the situation, or they just figure out how to roll with it and to them it's normal. The second thing is to come up with a proper plan to resolve the problem. Some people we've tried, but that's not a proper plan. You can come up with a plan. That doesn't mean the plan is an effective one or a good one. You got to come up with a good plan, a proper resolve. Again, you don't find ways to push men out or demonize them or emasculate them. That does nothing but make things worse. Proper plan. See what the issue is and address it. And then 3 is to execute that plan. Because it's easy to see what the problem is, but then you're part of the peanut gallery. And all you do is highlight the problem over and over and over and over and over again, but you're not lending any probable resolutions to fix this whole issue. So the thing is, we have to look at the issue, figure out a proper plan, because what we've been doing is not working as a whole. There are many people who have figured it out. There are a lot of people who have figured it out, and it's working for them and their family and their communities. So, but it's still a widespread problem with it. So when I say what is wrong with men, we have to look at how did the men get there in the first place? What has been allowed to have these men manifest this in their characters? You know, everybody has a little bit of wrong in them. It's not every man, because a lot of women have a lot of things wrong too. But then at the same time, we have these things wrong, and we have these things that we permit in life, in society, in culture, then that's going to affect the children. And now these children are going to come up with these problems. And then what we do, we turn around and point fingers at them. This is your fault. No. It's what we allowed to happen. Our first podcast was about character. That is so strong of a factor. We need this, and we don't have that much character development. Not to the point we need it. Okay? So we also need to look at the cultural response for everything. We have to look past just pointing the fingers. We have to just look past that what we've tried to come up with on our own, or what society told us is the proper way forward, and see that it's not working. Then we have to actually give standards. So, you know, when you're used to like eating Twinkies every day, 5 years, 10 years, your whole life, and then when you hear from the doctor, you look online to see what you should and shouldn't eat, it's going to be hard to kick. Only until you're at the point of basically no return, where you're going to die or you got to get a body part chopped off. That's when we're like, oh man, I need to really stop. We don't want to get there. We're pretty much at that point right there. But the thing is, people forget proper standards because we want to do what we want to do. We want to indulge what we feel all the time. And that, in turn, basically comes from not having a standard. And our standard is supposed to come from our Creator, Elohim. He laid everything out for us. When people say the Bible is old-fashioned, it's outdated, we gotta move and be progressive, we're no better for it. The answers are there already. The way to live is there already. The way to live, not how we think it is. We gotta put them Twinkies down, drink more water, be more active. We can't just eat what we want to eat and think that our bodies are going to be better for it. Well, I'm going to stop eating Twinkies, but, I'm going to still eat donuts. You still got to put the right things in to fix the problem, man. That's the issue that we have to come across. So the way forward is collectively raising our children properly, limiting the exposure to entertainment, teaching children from when they're young men, of how to conduct themselves when they're out there, when they're not under our watchful eye. Teach them. Yes, unfortunately, they will have their own free will. So when they're ready to move how they want to move, even if it's against everything you taught them, we have to let them go, unfortunately. But the best thing we need to do is teach them and show them what is right and what is wrong, so they're better equipped to deal with society, because society is going to break you down. Life will eat you up. The problem isn't just men. What's the problem with men? It's the fact that we need to collectively grow young boys properly. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you didn't fall asleep. Hopefully you didn't switch off. Hopefully I turned a switch on in your head. I will see you or hear from you, or you will hear me next week on another subject, another beautiful subject. I hope I didn't weigh too heavy on you guys, but I'm going to see you next time. Walk good. Be blessed.